welcome to August Lunch and Learn. I am Amanda Lakin, the Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the Nevada Housing Coalition. And I have just a couple of announcements for you before we get started. So our conference is just 2 months away, and it is taking place on October 19th and 20th at the Peppermill Reno. So we do have limited space this year. We are about halfway sold out of the event, and our hotel room block is also selling out very quickly. So we really encourage you, if you would like to attend, please register as soon as possible so you can save your space. We do have scholarships available, and if you are interested in those, feel free to reach out to me. And we just released our agenda along with our keynote speaker, and you can find all of that information on our conference website, which I am going to post in the chat for you. And on that page, you're going to be able to find our agenda, our keynote speaker, and as we start to fill in information on our breakouts, we'll have information there as well. So the day before our conference on October 18th, we are going to be having, sorry, I need to change, there we go, some conference information for you to see while I'm talking. The day before our conference on October 18th, we will be having an Elevate Nevada event called Affordable Housing Development 101, Finance and Construction. So this event is going to be in partnership with Enterprise Community Partners, and it is going to cover affordable housing finance and development. The participants will be able to learn about opportunities and challenges facing affordable housing development, and they will be able to have the opportunity to access feedback and action planning specific to projects they are pursuing. We will also be having our annual member meeting that night, which includes a policy discussion. So if you're not a member and you would like to join us, you can reach out to me, or I will actually post a link in the chat where you can sign up online to be a member. And lastly, tomorrow, we are actually kicking off the Elevate Nevada Supportive Housing Incubator Academy. It is kicking off tomorrow with a virtual session, and this is a no-cost opportunity that will cover foundations of supportive housing, assessing organizational readiness, roles, and partnerships. So there's 2 parts. Again, tomorrow is the virtual session from 1 to 4, and then you will choose an in-person session either in Reno on August 30th or Las Vegas on September 1st. So there's still time to register, and we will be posting another link for you if you'd like to sign up for that event. So now I'm going to introduce our moderator for today's session, Christine Hess. She is the Executive Director with the Nevada Housing Coalition. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, thanks, Amanda. Yeah, so many great events coming up and opportunities to educate ourselves. I'm going to all the events, by the way. As we all know, I've been doing this 2.5 years, but there's so much to learn in affordable housing. And that includes today's session. So I'm really excited about today. As we all know, Nevada has our country's most severe shortage of available and affordable housing for our extremely low income Nevadans. It's not escaped our leadership, and we're still celebrating the $500 million investment of Nevada's American Rescue Plan Act funds for affordable housing, leading the country. Let me tell you, I'm getting outreach from some of our neighbor states just wondering how we got that done. So really a big shout out to the Home Means Nevada initiative and the governor's office and the Nevada Housing Division for really leading efforts on that. But this amazing program is about investing in our assets and building it, which we know takes some time. And so today I wanted to talk about instant affordable housing. And can we really have instant affordable housing? So housing that's made affordable and available to our Nevadans that are otherwise locked out of housing. Throughout the pandemic, I've had the privilege of participating in Clark County's Operation Home program. And last spring, we gave an update on that program, and we can coordinate another one for sure. Today's program isn't about that, but through that work, I had the opportunity to meet Maurice Page. Maurice is Clark County's landlord engagement specialist. That position in and of itself is also unique. It's a public-private partnership between the county and Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. We love public-private partnerships because it takes all of us to make this work happen. So thank you, Anthem and Clark County, for making that happen. But I've asked Maurice here, as the founder of Page Strategic Solution, to share with his variety of experiences from solutions, housing, systems, all of these things that have to come together to actually move forward in the housing space. If he could just share the opportunities that he sees in his experiences recently to advance affordable housing beyond just building new units. So with that, Maurice, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christine, for having us today. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. Hopefully everything is coming up clearly. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And I would like to thank Nick and Blake for joining us. I first met Blake roughly about 9 months ago. In that time, we have gotten to know one another, and he has been a huge resource to the success of our housing initiatives here in Southern Nevada. So I appreciate you, Blake, for joining us. When I gave you the call and or email and asked you to come on, you did not hesitate. You reached out and said, definitely, how can I be of assistance? And so thank you again. Nick as well. He is new to the Las Vegas market. He is not actively living here, but he has recently purchased a multi-unit building and will be opening up those units to our program participants. He brings a wealth of knowledge in the real estate field to the table. And without stealing too much of their thunder, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves after I get done with my presentation. Just a little bit more about me. I've been here in Southern Nevada for roughly 20 years. Sometimes I can't even believe it's been that long. But one of the things that I've done over the last 13 years is work with the nonprofit housing sector, getting to work with our community agencies to develop system improvements, housing affordability for those who are in need and are struggling. And so I am, again, just grateful to be able to talk to you today about our experiences. You'll hear me talk a little bit about Southern Nevada, just because this is where I live at. This is the experiences that I will provide to you. And so, if you have questions later on about just how we can expand across our wonderful state, we'll be able to address those at that time. So let's jump right in. So if you're familiar with Nevada housing market, you consistently hear that finding affordable housing for somebody who's on a fixed income is completely unrealistic. We know the statement is not true just because we're doing the work here, especially in Southern Nevada. It's not easy, but it's not completely unrealistic. According to the National Gaps report, as the state of Nevada continues to be one of the fastest growing states in the nation, and from a housing perspective, though, we do have a significant shortage of affordable housing. Every year we do a point in time count, which just calculates or counts how many homeless individuals we have in this area. We do it throughout the state. I'm gonna give you the numbers primarily for Southern Nevada. The biggest number that really jumps out is that we have over 13,000 people, including children, annually who will experience some form of homelessness, and a statewide affordable housing shortage too. And we do not have enough of affordable housing to accommodate the needs. So in my role as the landlord engagement specialist, it's been my job to educate property owners, landlords, property owners, investors, developers, the business community, faith community on the need and help make sure that help make the business case why it is more cost effective to work with subsidized housing programs to house people and keep people housed than it is to keep households cycling in and out of homelessness. Again, according to the GAP report, there are only 18 affordable and available homes for every 100 extremely low-income households, and a shortage of nearly 80,000 available and affordable homes in the state of Nevada. The cause of homelessness being rapid increases in market rate rent, which makes housing unaffordable, coupled with wages not keeping up with housing costs and barriers that keeps people from accessing housing, like prior eviction history or low credit scores, drives the business case that we need more affordable places with services for people to live. We are working to create that option in the private rental market. So landlord engagement is vital to the work of preventing housing instability and evictions. A landlord engagement strategy can help ensure that property owners are aware of and make use of available programs, while also communicating important information to our program participants. Developing authentic, fruitful relationships and establishing trust with property owners takes time, sustained investment, and intentionality, especially on my part as the landlord engagement specialist. The payoff is definitely worth the effort. When there is a strong communication and trust with the landlord community, They ensure better success and broader engagement for programs designed to support landlords and foster housing stability for tenants. Furthermore, once I came on board as the landlord engagement specialist, it was in my best interest to compile best practices that have worked in other communities for landlord engagement before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. I was able to compile a list of best practices and evidence-based models to guide me in learning how to engage with property owners when a public health emergency occurs. And with that being said, one of my first initiatives was to ask our stakeholders in the community a simple question. What would it take for you to either partner with us or continue to partner with us? I was able to survey a mixture of realtors, investors, property managers, developers, 85 people in all in our community. This was the responses, and this is what you see on our screen. They want on-time payments. 85 people immediately jumped on that. Free assistance finding and screening tenants who seek housing, 80 folks. Access to our risk mitigation fund to assist with rehab costs, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's 81 people. On call and assigned staff to respond to concerns, 75 individuals. And just having the enjoyment or the feeling of giving back to the community, 66. So after reviewing the data and going over my notes from the conversations that I had, I knew that in many ways I need to be able to sell this product, right? Having the ability to convince property owners that this product will meet their needs and address their concerns. And using the results from the questions I laid out to myself, I laid out my priorities as the following. I want to protect their assets, and I'm talking about landlords, of course, their buildings, their units, their homes. I want to keep the money flowing, which is rent and low vacancy, mitigate actual and perceived risk. I want them to feel as though I am helping them, not vice versa. I'm providing a service to them. And so that said, they are all property owners who may want to help. So at the end of the day, let's tug. I like to tug on the heartstrings, including a success story or two, not only about the success of a tenant who has gone through our programs, but also about other property owners who have committed. I knew that I needed to have each of my property partners' best interests to build the bridge between them and our tenant. So how do we engage landlords? As Christine mentioned at the beginning, Clark County is spearheading Operation Home, which is a joint system-level effort to rapidly and permanently house individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Well, we must understand that no one in our community or in our state should have to choose between rent, food, or healthcare. And with the construction of affordable housing being chronically underfunded, this program, along with our other housing programs, allows us to connect our property partners with incentives and community partnerships that ultimately allows us the ability to house more people by streamlining our efforts and being more strategic about where our resources are allocated. Having these incentives available allows us to get past the gatekeepers and start to have real conversations about housing and how they can make an impact, along with making our owners some money. When an individual has a roof over their head and he or she is stable, it not only gives that person an opportunity to strive, but it also allows our economy to grow. So when I talk about our Operation Home and this program, we have had great success with it. And some of the incentives, which has now been opened up to all of our housing programs here in Southern Nevada, we have a lease signing bonus. A $1,000 per lease signing bonus is available for every unit secured. So all of my developers, property owners, investors that's on this call, you as a potential partner can receive a signing bonus every time you rent one of your units to our potential tenants. On-time rent payments. Again, if you go back to the survey, this was one of the top things that they wanted. Timely rent payments, we provide that by ACH or whatever your preference is. Double security deposits to support access to housing. We can pay up to 2 times the amount of rent as a security deposit. A risk mitigation fund, again, something that I mentioned back in our survey. This is an added protection for landlords willing to rent to someone with limited income. Landlords may be reimbursed up to $3,000 for damages to restore the unit following tenant exit. Security deposits and allowable HUD charges must be exhausted. And if you are ready to house an individual, but the unit is not ready and doesn't meet inspection standards, we are also available. You can also use or request the funds to help with the rehab costs, up to $3,000. So you have $3,000 that you can use, again, as rehab costs on the front end, or on the back end after a tenant is left and there is damages after you've exhausted the security deposits, you can have access to any additional funds that it may have cost to improve that unit. Not beautification, only rehab. We also provide a housing specialist. Case managers monitor participants' housing stability and are available to resolve crises. We also have a landlord engagement and property service team, which is better known as LEAPS. Again, the fear for most landlords in this market is that in the event of a crisis, they will be left to deal with the situation on their own. Well, with the landlord engagement and property service team, or better known as LEAPS, they offer program information, 24/7 support, tenant support, and they can handle all of your lease signing bonuses and risk mitigation claims. They have a hotline and they have a website that you can reach out and contact for all urgent concerns. Finally, and this is a huge benefit to our marketing efforts to engage landlords, is that we have a web-based housing search platform called Padmission. This is custom built for all of our housing program participants and landlords. Padmission is like other online housing search services in that it allows landlords to list and market their properties to our prospective tenants. Landlords can list and market properties and available rental units with information that includes property address, floor plan, numbers of units, rent, deposit, fee requirements, utility responsibilities, all the amenities, facilities, pictures. You can add pictures, and you can make your marketing remarks and special concessions if you're running any other special deals. You know, I mentioned earlier how I went out and asked the question, what would it take for you to either partner with us or continue to partner with us? And after I discovered what their priorities, what our landlord priorities are or were, and how my approach should be allowed, I also realized that I need to ensure that I'm speaking their language as well, which is very, very important. So not only as, you know, I talked about being able to sell this product, right? Sell this program. You know, their language is, you know, I need to speak about our clients as tenants, potential tenants. I want to be able to take the stigma of them being a client out of the conversation. We want to talk about what their return on investment is going to be. Usually in the social service field, we don't talk about those type of terms. In the business field, and when we're talking about this, however, we need to be able to relate this information and give it back to them. We want to speak to them about the supportive services the person will receive from a housing specialist, not a case manager. Again, using different terms, different vocabulary to express how this program is going to work for them and benefit them is very key. These simple terms allow for all of our property partners to start thinking about this as a business transaction and less about it being a risk. In addition to that, I set out to nurture the relationships, being reliable, easily accessible, and forthcoming. Of course, I want to build trust. My marketing efforts over the course of the last year has allowed me to gain partnerships with the following entities: Nevada State Apartment Association, Nevada Housing Coalition, of course, Nevada Real Estate Division, local Chamber of Commerce's, Greater Las Vegas Realtor Association, and many more. Word of mouth, flyers, webinars such as this one, and in-person gatherings, as well as published articles and radio interviews, has also allowed me to build up our inventory. Also, I want to talk about there is also an education component to this. Because once we have secured partners and units, it's up to me to educate our property partners about supportive housing as well. And this is something that really, you know, our community is still evolving with, and we're still working hard to master this. Supportive housing is affordable housing where supportive services can actively engage tenants in flexible, voluntary, and comprehensive services, and work with property and housing management to support tenant stability and ensure that the housing remains a positive community asset for the long term. Supportive housing is an innovative and proven solution to some of our community's toughest problems. Again, this is not something that the state of Nevada or Southern Nevada has created. This is something that these are best practices that have been taken across the country, and we have been able to pull those best practices, pull those evidence-based best practices, and employ them here in Southern Nevada to gain success with our landlord engagement efforts. finally, because I don't want to take up too much time, I've learned through this initiative that for us to acquire more affordable housing, we must develop, cultivate our partnerships within our business community. And to do that, we must do the following things. And these are things that I take to heart when working with my landlords. I follow up, I call regularly, get feedback on rental situations. I don't just check in when things are going downhill. I keep my commitments. I respond within decent timeframes. I intervene, mediate when appropriate. I operate with integrity and honesty. I deal directly and honestly with our property owners to address the problems or concerns that they may have. I try to respond in a timely manner to a landlord request for assistance. And I try to ensure that committed home visits and case managed occurs. Follow through is always going to be huge selling points. And then always keep open lines of communication. So those are some of the plans, some of the ideas that we do here in Southern Nevada to create landlords or create our pool of landlords. We have had great success. Thank you for your time today, and it has truly been a pleasure. I'll hand it back over to you, Christine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maurice. And I'm so excited. We're going to have kind of a table discussion among us all. Before I start that, though, Maurice, I just have to follow up. So first of all, what I heard is it's not quite as simple as the title, just add relationships and incentives.
Right.
But in some ways, it's like business 101,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, what you're providing is really pretty fantastic. I do just want to give a special shout out to Clark County because their risk mitigation and rehab fund, amazing, alongside incentives. So Reno Housing Authority also has a risk mitigation fund, but Clark County's fund for local governments was the first stood up by a local government in the state. So especially with the incentive fund alongside that, that's pretty incredible. But to also have the foresight in partnership with Anthem to bring on a landlord engagement specialist is awesome. The language, it's so funny you say that because in our early conversations, I almost wanted to say, oh, you're saying tenants, don't we say clients?
Right.
So I really appreciate that you're speaking to it with our landlords that we have here today like that. Those were some of the things that I really picked up. You talked about successes. Before we get too much, what does your success look like? You've been the landlord engagement specialist in Clark County now about a year. How many
Yes.
units have you brought to the table for housing?
So great question. So first, let me just say that in Clark County, we have, this is not like our first go around in regards to acquiring housing and doing our housing programs, right? Operation Home is basically a housing program on steroids, you know, because we started off with additional funding, and because of the pandemic, we was infused with so much more monies to be able to help our community get back on track that, you know, Operation Home was created. So with that being said, you know, our housing programs have been around for close to 20 years, probably maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little shorter, but somewhere around that time frame. So we had already established housing and landlords and partnerships within the community. However, when I came on board and I worked primarily with the admission database and things of that nature, we had roughly about 14 units available in admission. We had only about, I want to say about 30 to 35 property managers enrolled in admission. Over the course of the last year, we have been able to increase that by 540 units. We have been able to bring on 120 property managers, investors, realtors, et cetera, to our platform to be able to create more housing for our community. And again, this is not just me. I mean, I don't want to take the full credit for this. This is a community effort. We have we talk about our Leavitt team. I talked about that during our presentation. They have now housing navigators that go out and touch base. So it's really been a team effort. And I want to be able to commend them for the work that they have put out and that they're doing as well.
Yeah, the Leavitt team is awesome. I just have to say, so for the audience, that number of 534 units, you said 538 yes. units that have been brought in to be made, right? Accessible right. and affordable units, access for clients. Last year, the annual housing progress report by the state of Nevada, granted, we're talking two different things, but just to put it in perspective, we added new to our subsidized housing inventory, affordable inventory, about 1,000 units.
Mm.
And now those are permanent, right, for 15 to 30 years at minimum. Actually, per Nevada, 30 years minimum. But so, of course, different. But in terms of access to housing, when we have such a shortage, those 530 units that you're bringing forward and we're getting housing people in an affordable way with services alongside them is huge. So I just want to thank you for that work in Clark County and the LEAPS team. You're right, it's a whole program, all the service provider partners that come to the table, PAD Mission, amazing work. With that though, I did ask, I said, Maurice, I want to hear directly from landlords that you're working with. I want to hear, why did they start working with you? Were they working with you before? How's that going? What do they like? What don't they like? You brought us a couple of amazing landlords, developers from Clark County. So I'll turn it back to you to introduce your relationship.
Okay, so I will start with Blake, because Blake is, again, who I first got in contact with and started a partnership relationship with over the last, like I said, about 9-10 months. So Blake comes to us with I'm not going to go through your bio, Blake, because your bio, after I read it, I said, this man is phenomenal. And you have done a lot of work. And trust me, you look like you're about 19. But you've been
29.
Right. but you've done such amazing work here in our community. So I'm going to first hand it over to you. If you could just take a couple of minutes, talk about your experiences, your knowledge, and then we'll switch it over to Nick.
Sure. So my name is Blake Leavitt, and I'm a multifamily broker at KW Commercial and multifamily investor at Blake Realty Ventures in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have over 10 years of real estate experience and have lived here for over 29 years. As a broker, I have completed a significant amount of residential, multifamily, and commercial transactions, and also structuring the debt and equity on these transactions so that investors can achieve maximum yield. As a multifamily investor, I currently own 48 multifamily units. I am an LP in 260 multifamily units, and I continue to look for opportunities to grow. I am also thankful to be able to be a part of our community and help whoever I can.
Excellent. Thank you, Blake. I'll turn it over now to Nick. I met Nick actually through Blake. Blake referred Nick over to me a few months ago. We started our conversation, Nick, probably back in May. I want to say late May, early June. At the time, he was in the process of purchasing a 7-unit building down in the downtown area of Las Vegas. And he said, hey, I want people in these units. Can you do that? And I said, yes, I can. And this is what else we can also do. So Blake is not a resident of Clark County or of Nevada. He's actually in California. So I will turn it over to Nick, let you introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Christine and Amanda, for having me. And first of all, congratulations to the Nevada Housing for raising the $500 million opportunity. That's amazing. As Maurice said, my name is Nick Antonian. I'm actually I'm a CPA here in Los Angeles, a partner at a firm called Marcum. We're about 3,200 people strong, lots of offices, a lot of folks. I sit in the LA office. My specialty is retail and consumer products. I'm also the LA office real estate expert, and I consult with clients in complex transactions and so on and so forth. I had the opportunity to, enter the Las Vegas and Nevada market, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But I had a great experience, and, thank you for allowing me to do that as, somebody out of state. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation as to, what you all bring to the table that we don't have here. But I currently own approximately 40 units in both states, and I'm looking to continue building up the portfolio actually in your state. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to a very, very good conversation and dialogue, and please feel free to ask any questions you want.
Awesome, thanks. So now it's my turn. I get to facilitate a discussion, but in the meantime, if anyone has some Q&A questions for Blake, Nick, or Maurice, feel free to put those in either the Q&A or the chat. We will monitor those and try to get to those. Welcome to Nevada, Nick. And so great to meet both of you, Nick and Blake, and thanks for participating and helping to house some of our most vulnerable Nevadans. Since I entered the space here in Nevada, I've always said, you know, it's a public-private opportunity for all of us to work together, right? Affordable housing isn't dependent on government alone. It's going to take all of us, and you both are part of the solution. So I really appreciate you, and also that you're willing to share with everyone of how you come to the table. So I think we touched on this already before, but I just want to ask, you know, what is your experience with affordable housing or working with tenants? No, Maurice, I was listening. Working with tenants that may come alongside, have housing specialists that come alongside of them to support them with services. Did either of you have that experience before? And Nick, maybe I'll speak to you first, and then Blake.
Yeah, that's a great question. I did not have the experience before working with these types of tenants. I had a limited amount of experience working with some U.S. vets that I was dabbling in and trying to get comfortable with. And when I was looking at my second acquisition in downtown Las Vegas, you know, I was really looking for a little bit more of a better solution as far as acquiring these tenants, providing them great opportunities for housing. These units are going to be looking great in the next 30 days. And when we go back to Maurice's presentation about the things that were important to me, paying on time and you know, maintaining the units and things like that, I was really looking for this type of solution. And the fact that Maurice and his team are able to provide it is making me and my investors and my clients look at these opportunities more and more in comparison to what we were looking at, especially here in California, as we look to potentially expand in Nevada. And so I like the idea. It certainly has my attention. And I'm convinced it's going to work both for myself as a owner, landlord, and investor, and it's going to work obviously for your tenants and solve the long-term issue.
Awesome, thanks, Blake.
So yes, I do have a little bit of previous experience with affordable housing and working with caseworkers. In the past, we owned properties on Fremont Street. We no longer own those that we used to manage, but we work with several nonprofits there. But Maurice's program was, I would say, definitely different. There was more clarity, more information that he provided, and it looks like, you know, they're just really on top of everything now. And the benefit is Maurice's program works with all the, you know, all the nonprofits. So the same ones we were working with before, they're working with him now. So it's, you know, everything's under one umbrella. And that's, you know, definitely good for a landlord, you know, to deal with one person instead of, you know, 30 different nonprofits.
Yeah, again, kind of putting ourselves in your shoes, Blake, right? Or Nick, that you don't have 30 different organizations coming to you, but you can look to Maurice to bring those tenants into your units. That sounds like that was also helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely value in streamlining that process from an administrative component for sure.
Definitely.
Excellent. And how about the programs that Maurice brought forward that were being offered by the county? Were those things that you have heard of before? Now, granted, those were all brand new, but do you think there are things that would have crossed your desk eventually? Was the presentation and outreach by Maurice significant? Was it surprising?
I'll start with that one. I was introduced to Maurice from Blake. When Blake shared about the program, I didn't believe it because we don't have anything like that out here in Los Angeles. And so I needed to hear it from myself. I had several calls with Maurice. I asked tons of questions around everything because I'm very analytical and I need to figure it out. And at the end of the day, I was very impressed. I actually made my decision to close on the next building after speaking with Maurice and his group because I wanted to make sure that I had a solution lined up for my next purchase. So it was an instrumental part in my decision-making process, and it's going to continue to be. And I hope, the folks on the line that are, looking at these programs and extending them and funding them, realize that it's critical to folks like us who are looking to, continue this into the future.
So Nick, I mean, in a sense, it's helping you understand your business model and your business case as an investor, landlord, owner moving forward then.
100%, because I know if there's minimums that I can build in, I can, figure that out for the banks, I can figure that out for the investors, and I can syndicate the opportunity, and it decreases the risk, which is one of some of the things that we look at as investors and people that are holding these assets. And so I think that since that solution's in place, it decreases my risk, it decreases the investor risk, and it just makes it that much more attractive. And that's one of the reasons I left California, or left investing in California, because it wasn't practical at that point anymore. And we're in a rising interest rate environment. As the folks might know, the Fed might raise the rate again next month. And so I wanted a little bit more stability and security, and I wasn't getting it here. And so I'm actively, interested in your state.
Awesome. And Blake, for you, you've had experiences before. How is this one different? Is it different?
So when we first met, Maurice was very informative, but how I found out about this program was I remember Clark County posted something on Facebook stating the Operation Home program, and Maurice's contact info was there. And someone I knew tagged me in the comments of Clark County's post. So I looked at the post, found Maurice's contact information and reached out to him. And we just, started discussing from there. Operation Home, it was definitely more intriguing due to all the people that they need a house and due to the incentives they were offering. When I purchased a 48-unit property, it wasn't part of my business model to house these type of tenants originally. But after having a few conversations with Maurice and seeing the incentives that were offered, I, decided to give it a try and, see what happens. And, so far it has been, really good with these type of tenants. And I like that I'm able to provide some of my more vulnerable community members with housing with this program behind them to help with the rent. And then, because of this and, since everything's been going good so far, I started, introducing Maurice to landlords I know, including Nick, so that, other landlords can take advantage of the incentives being offered and help with housing people that, truly need housing.
Yeah, I appreciate you both in this space. Maurice, this next question's for you. Two different examples of landlords, right? An established, albeit young, Blake, landlord in our community, a mover and shaker, obviously in Clark County, and a newcomer investor, which is the type of investing I do not mind hearing, right? Investors that are engaging in our community and contributing to community solutions. But two different investors. Did you use different approaches, or is your approach the same? Because I know you're working with landlords of varying sizes, owners, developers, property managers. We had this discussion.
Yeah. So for Blake and Nick in particular, they are both very analytical and thinkers. And so our communication, I had to keep it very, it was the same for both of them. It was, I'm going to give them all of the information. I'm going to try to lay it out as much as I can, and I'm going to respond to every single question that they had. And I can joke about it now, but it was like during that time frame, you should see our chain of emails between like Blake and I, and the conversation between Nick and I was like, Nick would hit me with would call me with a question and say, okay, I'm stupid, but answer this, you know what I mean? And say, but it wasn't a stupid question, but you know what I mean? It was like very inquisitive. Is this for real? Is this really going to happen? What is going to be the process? And it was times where Blake and I, just over email, we would be emailing each other at 2 a.m. about, what would be the steps to be able to integrate and get this up and moving. And so, and he would also keep me informed of his next purchases and how things were going to be laid out. Now, not every landlord is going to work it and operate that way. Some landlords, they just hear the incentives and they just want to be able to say, okay, I want access to the incentives. Let's get it moving. And I will open up X amount of units for you at that point. So some people are just very direct with it. And so, you know, for those, you know, you just go in, you get the paperwork done, you get them set up, and then you start developing more of a relationship with them, because now, you know, of course, they're going to be looking for their money. And so that gives me an extra opportunity to talk to them and educate them about the process and how things will work out during the program. With Blake and Nick, it was, I need to know full details. I need to know how this is all going to be laid out, how long this program is going to be, before I sign or get involved with anything or anybody, which is, you know, which I actually prefer, because you don't feel as rushed, right? Because some property owners, maybe their problem is during the pandemic, they lost so much money because of the eviction moratorium, or because their properties just got damaged or whatever. So they're just like, I want access to that $1,000. I want that on-time rent. I want the double security deposit, because they have to start making up for the money that they lost. And so sometimes there's an anxiousness to that. So again, different approaches for different landlords. I've had some great experiences. I've had a couple of few learning experiences, but overall, it's been great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know we're ending our time soon, and I wanted to get to a few questions in the chat, but I'm curious about this, Blake and Nick. Would you say that relationships are more important than incentives? So would incentives alone work without relationships with someone like a Maurice, with the Leaps team there backing him? Of course, it's a team effort.
Well, I guess I could take that one first. I think the incentives and the relationships are extremely important. The incentives are the economic components that, you know, make the math work and make the decision making a little bit easier. Except for somebody like me who's out of state, I wouldn't be able to do this without a relationship with Maurice and his group, boots on the ground. You know, I rely heavily on that assistance and guidance. And I think even if I was in town, I think I would value that just as much, because, you know, Maurice and his group, they have their ears out there. They hear what's going on all the time. And if we maintain that relationship, that information is going to be passed on to me, and that might bring another opportunity, you know, for me to consider. And so I think they're equally important. The other thing that's important is, you know, because I'm a CPA, is, you know, the tax benefits and components that may bring, whether it's rebates or deferrals, and my buildings in particular are in the opportunity zones. And so all those things are very important for me to make and execute my decision. Blake, I'll turn it over to you.
So I would say that relationships and incentives, they both go hand in hand. So if Maurice wasn't so detailed about the program in our discussions in the beginning, you know, I may have not had been that confident about giving the program a try on my own property, or, you know, to introduce him to other landlords I know. So I would say, you know, you got to build the relationship first, and then, you know, the incentives are, you know, great to utilize.
Awesome. And we do have a few questions in the chat. Maurice, Blake, and Nick, can you spend a few more minutes with us, because we're at our 12:45 mark? Awesome. So if everybody else can sit tight, I'm going to get to your chat questions. Maurice, real quick though, this sounds like it's working in Clark County. And what's the future in your mind, not speaking for the county, of course, but the future in Clark County and in Nevada to really maybe double down on this effort? You know, some states have statewide risk mitigation funds. You know, is that an opportunity to bring more units online quickly and address the needs of some of those are most vulnerable?
So what I can say is that through the success that we've had over the last year, especially with Operation Home, this particular program has been extended for another year. So that is exciting for our potential landlords that will come on board in the future, and for our current landlords, because now you know that the funding, and if they have more units available coming online, that money will be there for them. This is something when you talk about, having a statewide risk mitigation plan, when you talk about having incentives and laying it across our whole state, this is something that I think, needs to be addressed. I think the conversation needs to be continued further. And we need to, all come together at the table and see how this can be done. I just, in my experience in this, the risk mitigation fund over probably the last 6 months has really has flown off the table. Once the landlords have really took an interest and really started understanding that, hey, I can use this for, rehabbing, and fixing up my place so that this way, I can kind of cut my costs, claims were probably through the roof at that point. And so just doing on average, our landlords who are purchasing buildings and doing renovations, they're averaging about $7,000 to $8,000 per apartment, per unit. And so being able to cut that down and say, I'm gonna be able to get $3,000 back, right? You can cut your costs down to $4,000 or $5,000. I mean, that is a huge benefit. And if you have multiple units, and let's say if you have 5 or 6, that's maybe $15,000 extra coming back into your pockets to say, hey, now this makes them more incentives. This makes them more inclined, more motivated to go out and purchase more units and work with our housing programs. And with this being opened up to all of our housing programs, and we have roughly 49 housing programs here in Southern Nevada, this is, a huge cup for us. And so to be able to take these incentives, take these programs and expand them across the state, definitely the conversation needs to be had.
Awesome. That's a conversation I want to have, really, to back up the good work that's being done in Clark County and the opportunities, just because we can't build it fast enough. Although we do have some awesome developers that are building and some great
Absolutely.
programs at the state. Quick question. First of all, Nick and Blake, you're wanted in Northern Nevada. I saw that comment in the chat. So you may want to address, reach out to Andrea, who posted that there. But Maurice, this is a question, it's a good question. What about the missing middle, if you will, of people, right? Middle income seniors on a fixed income that can't afford market rate rent anymore. Today's conversations, we've been talking about utilizing these incentives for really our extremely low income, which can include seniors on a fixed income, depending on what that looks like, and that have services associated with them. What if we go up a little higher on the income scale? So still within the low income, maybe it's 30 to 50% or 60% of area median income. Do you see this as an opportunity also within that space?
There's an opportunity for that. And again, we have 49 housing programs across Southern Nevada that can address some of those concerns, address some of those individuals who are right there on the cusp and maybe need some help. Again, we need to create a funding pool where we can help out those individuals who are not financially savvy or educated enough, or just don't have the resources, I should say, to maybe cover security deposits. Some landlords want up to 3 months of security deposits, or they want, X amount of fees. So we need to be able to create some type of other funding pools that will allow those individuals who are on the mid-tier to be able to say, okay, I don't have to choose between having to pay rent, right? Pay or my health care or my groceries. And so, again, that conversation needs to be had. We need to, explore that and see where we can take it.
Awesome. So many great questions. One of the questions on here is for other landlords to benefit. So if you're a landlord in Clark County, the program is Help Hope Home, and the website you can find information, Maurice, correct? helphopehome.org or .com?
.org.
.org, helphopehome.org to find out more information and get involved if you're a landlord in Clark County. If you're not in Clark County, in the Reno area, I know that Reno Housing Authority does have a somewhat of a similar program, but different. And so that might be some outreach as well. But from a statewide perspective, it's a state conversation. And in fact, Maurice, Nick, and Blake, you might see there, my board chair, Bill Brewer. Thanks, Bill. What's the source of the funding? This isn't an Operation Home program, so we didn't talk about that, Maurice, but essentially it's some of the pandemic relief funding that's come to the table. I don't know, there's so many acronyms running through my head. I think there could be some ESG funds in there.
Yes.
It's a combination,
Yes.
maybe some coronavirus relief funds, CRF that initially came to the table. I'm not sure ARPA funds, but maybe you can more specifically. We all deal in too many programs and acronyms.
Absolutely. So yes, this is federal funding that has come through the loop. Again, I don't want to jump into a whole lot of acronyms because I don't know who our audience will understand all of that, and the definitions and defining them will take even longer. However, yes, this is all federal funding that has come through to our state to be able to help us because of the pandemic. And I will say this, we already get HUD funding in our community or throughout the state. Actually, we have 3 continuum of cares throughout our state. And so we all get funding for housing, and this has been going on for almost 20 plus years. And so again, what we did was, or what was given to us because of the pandemic and because of the market rents rising and to all-time highs, we was given almost $25 to $28 million extra to cover these expenses and help individuals get back into homes. And so, yes, federal funding, number one. This has been expanded for another year, and we are looking forward to other bringing in additional funding from other revenues or other streams.
Excellent. And I'm just going to have to connect you with my board chair, who of course runs the Nevada Rural Housing Authority. So they run a lot of programs in-house and have some ability to be innovative as well. And we know the demand is certainly not just in Clark County, nor just in our urban metro areas, Clark and Washoe, right? It's also rural and the needs. So we have so much. I just want to, again, Blake, Nick, Maurice, everybody is stuck with us. I can tell you that you guys really just knocked it out of the park for sharing. And I really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And for everybody who's on the webinar, of course, this is recorded. We'll be posting it on our YouTube channel. In terms of more conversations around this for me, I have it flagged in my head as a policy discussion. I've already started those conversations with the Nevada State Apartment Association and what that means in our state and how we scale this larger to bring more affordable units online instantly, if you will, to mitigate our shortage and really get people housed, and particularly those alongside with the necessary services and important services. Tenants, housing specialists.
Yes.
So see that, Blake? I'm a good listener. But Amanda, thank you so much. Also, the Nevada Housing Conference is in Reno this year, October 19th and 20th. If you want to become a developer, investor, or just want to learn more about affordable housing the day before, we'll have some education. Tomorrow, if you want to hear Maurice talked about supportive housing, it's really important housing, right? It's our housing solution to end homelessness. We're having a supportive housing incubator academy that is at no cost, thanks to the partnership with the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco. We partnered with a national nonprofit corporation for supportive housing to provide that education. Anyone can sign up, and that's at our website, nvhousingcoalition.org. So thank you all so much. Appreciate each and every one of you, and thanks, audience.